Just wonderful. All right. Well, I appreciate everybody being here. This is always
Hi, Joe.
You just walk in and just own this place. All right. Good morning to everybody on Zoom. I'd like to challenge everybody to turn your cameras on because I can still see the screen. If you don't want to, that's fine. I heard a really terrifying story this morning from, I'm not even going to name names, but you remember, no. Did you hear about it in there?
I know nothing.
Somebody having their phone in the room in the house that you should never have a phone in. I'll let you guys just go with that, and they didn't know that they were not on mute. So, awesome.
Supreme Court judge?
What's that?
Are they a Supreme Court judge?
I don't know. I'm just going to leave that alone. So, all right, I'd like to start the meeting with tell me something good. Who's got something cool to share? A win, whether it's business or personal. What do you got? Something cool to share.
It's going to be 43 degrees today.
It's going to be. I heard 48.
Oh, sorry.
But let's go with 40s. 40s and sunny is a good thing, so I'll take it. Cool. Thanks, Joe. Who else? You guys got to work this hard. I know what it's like to be sitting out there. You have good things going on.
I've only had my license for 2 weeks, so everything is new and exciting.
New 2 weeks. I knew I hadn't met. That makes more sense to me. That's awesome. One more.
I got an honor accepted this weekend with an inspection.
Woo!
And no trace of.
Did you hear that? It's
yeah.
Like fireworks in here when you get an offer accepted with an inspection. That's awesome and speaks to some things that we're seeing out there, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. Things are a little funky. They're different than they were in March. They're different than they were in February. If we have enough time, we're going to jump into that too. So, all right. Can we go through a couple of events real quick? And do we know if
I'm screen sharing.
Do we know if she is on? Oh, there she is. Okay. All right. So I heard this, and I believe it to be true. There's too much focus on how much money am I going to make this year versus what's my net worth.
There she is.
Now, y'all looked at me funny on that. Is income important?
Yes.
Yes, income is important. Do you know people that don't make a lot of money that are very wealthy?
Yep.
Do you know people that make a ton of money that are broke?
Yes.
You should be paying attention to both numbers, not just income, but what's your net worth. We should, in my theory, have net worth goals every single year on how to build off of it. It doesn't mean we're going to jump it by $2 million a year. It means we start small and then you watch compounding do its work. So I think you got a fantastic panel here. I think it would be well worth your time to expose yourself to some of the things that they've done and some of the strategies that they've used to build their wealth. Cool? Did I do all right?
Very well.
Okay, awesome. Next. Your process is your product. This is more about touching your database effectively and making sure that you're consistent with developing the relationships, which we're also going to talk about today. So this is a class where you can actually do a workshop and implement things. Ideas are great. Without action, ideas are worthless. Well, not completely because they can inspire you, but at the end of the day, you're not going to get a ton of results. Okay. All right, and I think we have one more. So Red Day, who's familiar with Red Day? And who's not? I don't blame you at all. Thank you for being honest. So Red Day, for those that aren't familiar with what we do, it's something KW internationally, we take that day to go serve in the communities and volunteer in the communities that we work. It does make us different. Now, I'm going to encourage everybody to participate and spend a little bit of your time to serve the communities that you sell in. Red Day, we've teamed up with Aon to work with all 4 of our market centers in different communities. So Unfortunately, Tashia, I hope I didn't mess your name up, but if I did, I apologize. She's been working with our groups getting locations set up, but I'd like her just to kind of share a little bit of what they do and what they represent, and then we'll move on to the next thing. So Tashia, share what you have to share.
Good morning, everyone. It's Tasha, and don't worry, you aren't the last. Every time I go to the doctor, there's a question mark about who they're looking for. So, Tasha, I am the Community and Corporate Engagement Manager with AON, and we are thrilled to have all 4 of your locations join us in just a little over 2 weeks for Red Day. Some of you will be working in the morning, some will be working in the afternoon and on a variety of projects, everything from building furniture to mulching to some painting and planting. So thank you so much for your willingness to partner with us on this project. I've chatted with a few. I joined Minnetonka and Otsego locations last week, but I wanted to give you a quick overview of who AON is, who you're generally helping to support through your work on this day, and just encourage you to come out and join us if we can. So AON is a nonprofit housing developer and provider. So we develop and sometimes acquire affordable apartment homes and townhomes and then manage them. We've been around since 1986 when the convention center was being built in downtown Minneapolis. So that's really where we got our start. They were slated to knock down about 350 apartments that were affordable at the time. And some church activists and housing activists lobbied the city council, and our organization was started. AON is the Latin spelling for the word meaning timelessness or in perpetuity. So we are really trying to create homes, rental homes that will be here for the community for as long as they're needed. And some of the work that you all are doing are going to be helping us to spruce them up in the spring, update them, that kind of continuous thing that we go through as we own pieces of real estate. Across the Twin Cities, we serve about 17,000 people each year, spread across 60 properties and around just under 6,000 apartments and townhomes. So we have projects all the way up in Ramsey. So Otsego Group is going to be helping us out in Ramsey. We're all the way down in Chaska, Minnetonka, Minneapolis, St. Paul, quite a few properties in Bloomington and Richfield. So we're kind of sprinkled throughout the Twin Cities metro. Our primary goal is to create affordable housing, as deeply affordable as we can. That's really hard to do in this economy. And you can imagine how difficult it's been in the last couple of years with all the challenges to getting building materials, all those pieces. But our goal is to always create as many affordable homes as we can. So we serve folks at the very lowest level of affordability, that 30% and under of area median income. In the Twin Cities, for a family of 4, that's about $107,000, $110,000, depending on what area of the Twin Cities you're in. So we are serving people that are at 30% of that. And we do have affordable apartment homes up to 60% of area median income. We do have some that are market rate and mixed income. So you'll see a few different kinds of apartments and townhomes as you join us on May 12th. But really the goal of you guys helping us is to help keep those rents as affordable as we can. We serve seniors, we serve low-income families, we serve individuals coming out of homelessness, including 2 apartment buildings for youth who have experienced homelessness. And we serve just a lot of folks who are working minimum wage to $20 an hour jobs. Our newest development is there in Edina. So we're doing new development, and then we also do acquisition too. And then we have a team of resident connections that help provide support services to some of our residents. And then we also partner with other nonprofits. We really believe in doing what we're good at. So we have partnerships with Simpson Housing, with the YMCA, and some other organizations that do really detailed, specific work on helping to support individuals who are coming out of homelessness. I think that's what I've got for you today, unless anyone has questions. happy to answer those, but really excited to have you out. I know that most locations will ask if you're able to bring a wheelbarrow or tools, so please consider bringing those if you can. As you can imagine, our resources are going to be spread a little thin with 6 different locations on May 12th, but we're excited to have you come out.
That's awesome. We appreciate you letting us partner with you guys, and this obviously is right in alignment with what we do. So, Tasha, thank you.
Thank you so much. Can I offer one other piece too? If anyone is interested, I'm going to drop just a quick event that we're having next week. It's virtual at 7:30 next Thursday, May 5th. We have our annual fundraising breakfast. It's virtual, there's no cost to attend, but if you're interested in learning more about affordable housing and the work Aon does, this is a really powerful and quick 1-hour way to learn more. So we'd love to have you join us. I'll add that in the chat, and then I'll head out for the day, and I look forward to seeing you all.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
So, May 12th, talk to your team leader, MCA. They'll have details for whatever market center that you're in. So, something that I remembered that I get called out on a lot, I didn't even introduce myself. So if you know me, awesome. If you don't, my name is Jake Luehrs. I'm the general manager of the 4 market centers that we currently operate in Minneapolis, Edina, Lake Minnetonka, and Otsego. That's all you need to know. I don't like talking about myself, so we're all good. All right, so I want to dive in. When things get complex, I struggle, and I don't think I'm alone in that. So my goal is anytime I put together something that I want to have a conversation about, I like to have interaction, but I also like to simplify it as much as possible. So today I want to actually kind of build off of 2 different things that I think to be critical in building the businesses that you're looking to build. One is how are we generating business? What are the strategies that we're using that will actually help us build businesses? And then what do we want those messages, and how do we want to communicate who we are to the general public and who people we're trying to attract, which is branding. And I think they couple well based on some of the things that we're going to walk. So when we look at all the different ideas that we have on how we can actually build a business, I think there's some fundamental things for them to actually give us the result that we're looking for. So with ideas has to come action. Otherwise, there's a vulgar way to say this and there's a professional way to say this. I'm going to say it professionally. Ideas are worth nothing without implementation. So we can have all the awesome ideas. There's no shortage of ideas in the marketplace. Implementation and execution, there's a huge shortage because you can see it in the disparities of people that are doing tons of business and people that are doing limited business. So the first thing is, Barb, a plan. We've got to be able to articulate what exactly we're looking to accomplish and how we're going to accomplish it. Without a plan, what's going to happen is we're going to start, stop. Anybody ever do that? It's me. Okay. Second thing is, this is going to be funky, but it's an accurate self-awareness. Here's what I see. It's going to sound judgy, but I'm just trying to make a point. We see what other people do online all the time, and then we try to do the same thing as them without actually taking our own strengths and weaknesses into account. So if we don't have an accurate self-awareness, then we go do things that are in our strengths. What's the natural outcome of that? What's going to naturally happen if we're doing things that don't align with what we're like intuitively we know we're strong in? What's going to happen? Fail. What do you do before you even fail? Quit. Why well, you burn out, you quit, you burn out, and then you quit. Why? It's what?
Not what you love.
It's not what you love, and it's exhausting. It sucks. Like I'm gonna go do something I hate doing. I'm just gonna keep my discipline and keep doing this. So I think the self-awareness is really critical. You guys, we have 20 different ways we can go generate business. Some of them fit within your strengths. Some of them are exactly opposite of who you are. I think as human beings, we've become even more, we've gotten much better at reading authenticity versus something's off there. Sometimes we can't pinpoint it, but when something's off, we know it, which causes the consumer to hesitate. So I think alignment and authenticity, without those two things, you're missing a huge component of what could generate more business for you and the type of people that you want to be in business with. You agree? Anybody work with somebody that completely doesn't value the same things that you value? How fun is that? Why are we working with those people? I know why. Because we don't have enough other business to tell them to go away. It's the reality, right? So, all right. Third thing. It's the most underrated thing in anybody that you look at, anybody that's super successful, is consistency. Why is consistency so difficult? Discipline, and it's super freaking boring. I get to say freaking here. At home I can't. So that it gets really boring. Sometimes we don't get the results that we're expecting as quickly as we want them. So then we assume it's not doing its job. But I can tell you that you can do almost anything consistently and build off of it. Now, the challenge is intensity. Or Brianna put this on her door and I was super proud. Consistency beats intensity every day of the week. What we have is the same thing that when you go back, start, stop, we'll start off super, super, super strong, and then we'll stop. I'd rather have somebody start off super small and do it for 12 months, because I promise you they'll be way ahead and they'll learn more over a period of time than the person that does it for a month and doesn't give it enough time to either develop the skill or the results that we think it could provide. So we'll touch on that a few times today, just because I firmly believe that consistency is, you can be super not talented, and if you're consistent, you'll win. That's why anybody can be great at this. If you're just willing to be committed to the consistency day in and day out, you'll win. It's tough to lose because you never quit. And then the fourth one, we have to understand what we're actually doing. I realize this tracking is probably all in your strong suit, right? It becomes really easy. Understanding what your plan is allows you to understand what you actually need to track. Because if we're just tracking everything, we're not going to be able to consolidate that information to be something valuable. So what do I mean by tracking? It means how many people are you talking to? How many appointments are you going on? How many of those are turning into contracts? Like some very, very basic fundamentals of understanding what activities are showing up and what are the results that you're getting from it. And then over a period of time, you get to measure that. You can measure what's being effective or what may not be effective. So I 100% believe that these four things give you a foundation to build off of, like very few things will. And if you can commit to these, you're in great shape. So now let's look at our options for lead generation. Everybody got the Wi-Fi password if you need it? Up here. In my hand. Thank you. So the way I look at it is there's multiple ways to go lead generate. There's very active ways, and then there's passive ways. So let's first talk about what are the active ways we can go lead generate.
The phone.
Calling, okay? Sorry for the people on Zoom. I know you can't read that. Okay, what else?
Door knocking.
Okay, door knocking. What else? Open houses. Events. What else? Right. Social media. What else?
Sphere. Contacting your sphere.
So we could do cold calling and sphere. Okay. Interesting. Would postcards be direct or active or passive? So maybe I can identify this a little bit. Some of them you go after it, some of you would attract back to you.
So what if you sell a listing in the neighborhood, you send your postcards to the neighbors because you just sold that listing in the neighborhood? That's probably relatively active.
Some of these aren't just one or the other. Like social media, I look at social media as you can do it where you're actually like commenting on people, DMing people, actually reaching out and touching people. And you can do it through advertising, boosting ads, and attracting people to come to you. Okay, Mike?
I guess I would argue direct mail, if you have a specific reason, like you really truly not just in that neighborhood, you have it in your pocket, you send that card out. You get it.
So you guys changed my mind.
I would say if you're initiating the contact, the personal contact, it's active, and if you're asking for them to initiate it, it's passive.
What I'm hearing is if there's a target, it seems like it'd be more direct. If it was just a basic like promotional items, that's not targeting per se anybody. It's just getting your name out there, right? Do you guys agree with that?
I would say most marketing and advertising clients have a target audience in mind.
Okay.
So I wouldn't necessarily. I would.
Tim is that guy too, by the way. So it's tough to argue with him. He's been in that field before.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to do a postcard campaign to a neighborhood or to your sphere, or you're targeting those people. If you do it, even like a online ad, it's going to have a target you set up. So.
Yeah. It's tough to make the argument. I think there's a lot more control in the calling piece and relationship building in the calling piece than something like this, but I don't want to get hung up on one or the other.
Jake?
Yeah.
I think of active is there's a chance for an immediate response. And that's why I think of direct mail as more of a passive thing, because you're sending it out and there's not really that immediate response that you can get with the other pieces.
Well, anybody know what a mofer is? I was just going to say that. It's not technically English language, but it's don't get me into. I failed at English. Verbs, pronouns, all of that stuff. Make offer for immediate response. So when you're sending something out, you can initiate responses. Like the golden letter is a perfect example. Hey, I got buyers looking specifically in your neighborhood for this. If it matches what you have and you're interested in possibly talking about what your house might sell for, we'd welcome a call. That could be a little bit more immediate. So I think what we're learning, obviously, in this conversation is we could bucket these, but you can find nuances to every single one of them if you want. So what other ways can we, I'm just going to go right down the middle. What other ways can we generate business?
Networking events.
Networking? What else?
Meetings.
Meetings? Like one-on-ones? Somebody said something.
Like coffee dates, like meetings.
Oh, yeah. Yep. Okay. Personal notes. Personal notes. Seminars, good. You guys get the point, right? You got a lot of options. Now, if I were to ask you right now, do you have strategies around 2 or 3 of these? Let's see head nods, yes. Because if you try to do all of them, what's going to happen? I feel really weird standing behind this.
None of them will happen.
None of them will happen, or all of them will happen with not much response or results. So, who has a 411? Okay, we got about 50% of the room. We need to have some form of document that allows us to understand where we are, where we've been, what we've done, what we haven't done, not as a form of punishment, but as a form of just awareness around the numbers. So if you don't have a 411 if you don't know what a 411 is. I don't even care how you use whatever you use, but it's a really good tracking mechanism. One thing that I've learned from a lot of people that do things at a high level is they understand where everything is. They're very clear on what's the important metric to track and where I am in reference to the outcome that I'm searching for. Make sense? Okay. So now what I want to do is have an open discussion because there's a lot of different directions this could go, and I'm aware of that. Branding. This idea of branding has evolved dramatically over the past 20 years. Who was in the business 20 years ago? You guys look really good. You've been through a lot. Who was the brand 20 years ago? Brokerage. Who's the brand now? It's you guys. So the question is, how effectively are you branding yourselves individually? I mean, the brand itself can provide, here's what I do believe. The brand itself can provide stability and confidence from the consumer's standpoint, but it starts with you. And you're 90% of it. Half the people don't know what company you're with. And the reality is you guys are probably looking at me like, why are you saying that? I don't think the value is KW. I think the value is what we can offer you to help build a business. I don't think it's the name. And I realize there might be some people and they're like, Jake, what are you doing? It's just the reality. It's what I've seen. So that's why I also think leadership is so important. Not to just, I said something that could have been misconstrued, but not the way I wanted to interpret it. We're here to support you and congratulate you and all of that stuff, but I think the value of leadership is magnified when we actually have a conversation and be like, you know what, Julie, if I'm going to be honest, you keep saying you want this and it goes up this way. I don't see you getting here if we don't do this. And it's a partnership conversation. It's not a just go doing good work. Like there's a place for that, but I don't think is that where the value is? I think the value is in strong leadership and in helping you identify what the goals are. So if we can talk about how you brand yourself in a more effective way, I think there's some key components that we need to talk about. What does effective branding do? Can you go to the first one? Commitment to consistency. How do I get that? I got that one mixed up. Go to the next one, please. I think that one carried over. So it communicates what you value. We talked about this before. I want to walk through these first, and then I want to have an open discussion around each one of them. So understanding what you value and then effectively communicating it. I've said this over and over, B&I, the one thing that a big 30% of my business when I was in B&I came from that group, and it took time to build. But what stuck with me is we've got to be specific on what we're asking for. What do I mean by that? I mean, when you ask very general questions, how hard is it to think of something specific? Do you know anybody that might be looking to buy or sell? Like, that's a massive question. But when you narrow it down and you say, hey, do you know anybody that might be looking to move to the Twin Cities? Anybody in your network that might be looking to move here? I'd love to have a conversation with them. Or you can go from work. Like, you guys, this isn't new to you. But the challenge that we run into is this idea of, if I get too specific, they're not going to be able to think of anybody. So I need to keep it more general. That actually, in my opinion, at least in my experience, is the more specific I've got on asking for things that I want, the better results and the more answers that I actually want. Anybody agree, disagree? Both agree and disagree? Okay, so obviously we need to understand what we value so we can be specific around what we're looking for. Okay, next. It validates you, your service, and your knowledge base. So anything that you put out there, is it validating the business that you're running? Or is it validating the service that you can provide? Or is it validating a problem that you can help people overcome? Okay, next one. It educates. Obviously, there needs to be something that they need to understand based on what you're offering. That, like, we can educate people. I'm very cautious on this because I'm sure you guys have also seen it. There's agents that put things out that if you understand real estate, you understand they don't know what they're talking about. It's me again? No, it's not just me, guys. They're talking about things that, if you understand the business, it doesn't make sense, but they're trying to grab business from it. And at a certain point, you're going to get caught. So we need to make sure that we understand it so we can educate the people that we're working with. And the last one, it attracts. People want to work with people that they can affiliate with, or that they can relate to, or that they feel like they're relatable. So all of these things are super important when it comes to what messages are you sending? Tim and I were talking earlier. I think we underestimate, and this is Tim's point, so Tim, I don't want to steal it. People look at everything we put out. We're judging machines. So even when we don't think that we're marketing or sending out business, understand that we always are, always. So my goal in bringing this up is when you look at all of this beautiful artwork of handwriting, when you look at that, do you brand yourself within the avenues that you choose to build the business? Talk to me a little bit about your thoughts. Rick.
So I got two kids that this year graduated U of M, one criminal psych and one finance. And my kids said to me not long ago, about a month ago, they said, you know, when we go to Starbucks or wherever we go and somebody's smiling and they're like, here's your coffee, and they're all sweet and everything, it means nothing to them at all, because there's such a lack, in their opinion, there's such a lack of authenticity on whether that person is really, if they're, you know, they're just doing it for the job. And I said, well, guys, that's important. They should be doing it. They should like their job and they should like the people they interact with. But because they're so ingrained in social media, which is not authentic generally across the board, we're creating a culture here in which the authenticity is a lot harder to convey. Does that make sense? So in all of our marketing and social media and everything else, understand that the younger generation is not looking at most of what we're presenting as authentic. Now, I look at it because I'm 50, you know, and I'm like, oh, you know, Wendy, the way that she approaches me is very authentic, you know. But the younger generation isn't seeing that. And I think that's the way of the future.
Interesting take. I'm processing that. And the only thing is, I think they can sniff things out that aren't consistent. Because authenticity, as far as I'm concerned, if you do it long enough, that's who you are. But if you switch every time you put something out, then it gets super confusing. Kim?
One of the things that I can understand and relate to what he's talking about, because I've been talking to my girls about it, but your words need to match your actions, and your actions need to match your words. And so I think the more consistent you can be with that, people will eventually see that you are authentic.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's accountability without, that's the market giving you accountability. There's a lot of people in this business that will win short-term by doing short-term behavior. And we'll see a lot more of them than the people that are actually willing to build the business with a strong foundation and not compromising either values or certain actions to get the short win. I'm going to go on a little tangent here. One of the benefits of having some financial stability is you don't put yourself in a position where you have to do short-term behavior. And a lot of the challenges that we face in this industry is there's not a lot of, we don't have reserves set up So we start behaving in a way to just try and take care of and try and survive, like that's what we're meant to do. So a reserve account gives you the freedom to be who you are for a long enough period of time to attract the people that you want to do business with. So if I can make a stance, like start conserving cash if you don't have it, because it gives you freedom in the long run. There's tons of freedom when you're not. Everybody knows when you're being sold because something, they need to sell something. We all know that, right? You guys have felt that? When you have a financial, like a stable financial position, we show up differently. It doesn't make us good or bad people, by the way. Like we're all trying to survive, natural. And the more flexibility you give yourself, the more you can be yourself. And we have, I'm curious to Rick's point, we have some young people in this room. I'm curious, do you guys look at it that way? If you don't want to share it, you can just say, you guys are all old and I don't like you. Trust me, 42 feels a lot better than I thought it was going to when I was 20. So I'm good with it.
Jake, I'm just thinking about the authenticity part. Like, my mind when you said it, we all know what the Chick-fil-A experience is. And the people who work there may not be that when they start there. That's right. Like, I would be willing to bet that somebody starts at Chick-fil-A, their attitude changes after they're there for a year or two because they're forced to do that. So it may not start that way, but I think being in that culture.
I think that absolutely.
Who you're around matters.
Oh my
Sounds
God.
like you're talking about Keller Williams.
Right. Who you're around matters. There's no question. That's a great point. And some people haven't figured out, like, this idea that we should have ourselves figured out by the age 25 is super, I think it's way off. I'm still trying to figure it out. And the reality is, I think we're always trying to figure it out. But the timetable of 20, you should know who you are, and should graduate college, you should get married, should have kids, was based on people living like 50 or 60 years. And none of that has changed over a ton of time. You can be 30 and still have tons of time left. You don't have to have it all figured out. So, I don't know. I do tangents, and I hope that's.
Hey, Jake.
Yeah.
This is Carrie from Zoom land.
Carrie from Zoom.
From Zoom land, yeah. So, one of the things that hits me as far as the whole consistency thing, the social media, the getting yourself out there. This last year, I've been really trying to do that more, but I'm guilty of the feast or famine. And some of it is, that authenticity piece. Sometimes I just get sick of, hey, and I know it's not, you don't want to do that all the time. And yet you do have to have that level of that consistent positive thing going. And so I don't know, I'm just saying what my struggle ends up being as far as that consistency. It gets overwhelming and weary.
No, I think part of authenticity is also vulnerability. And we got the idea in our mind that we can't be vulnerable. I do think you have to be careful because you can show up as a victim if all you are is vulnerable all the time and you don't have anything to back it up. So I think we have to be strategic. Tim, you said something earlier around, now I lost my train of thought. When she was talking, it reminded me of something. I'm not sure what it is either. It might come back to me. But the reality is we have to be the authenticity piece. You've got to find the medium that allows you to do that. Some of us are great at video. Some of us are great at writing. Some of us are great at audio. That's back to your self-awareness. Like, if you don't write well, cool, do a video. But you gotta be able to communicate somehow. You can't be bad at all of them. So you've just got to identify it and hone that skill. Robin.
So when you just said if you show up with vulnerability all the time, you have something to back that up. You could be kind of construed as a victim, and I want to push back against that a little bit.
Perfect. Okay.
And that I think like it is vulnerable to say to somebody like, I'm financially stable and I And it doesn't have to be in a victim-y way.
100% agree with that.
I mean, that is a vulnerable thing. We don't talk about our finances. But if you can, like, I have told multiple clients, and like, look, I'm not trying to sound pompous, but I am tied to your dreams and what you want, not to getting a sale. And I've talked people out of selling so that they can take that and build long-term wealth. And I have talked myself out of single transactions for the long-term good. And that to me is a vulnerability, right? To say, like, you don't need me right now. You can do better without me. But it builds trust and long-term. And I think to be vulnerable doesn't necessarily equate with being a victim or being weak.
I don't think it equates to it. I think it can lead to it if our messaging is wrong. I do think if we're using vulnerability as a hook to get more business, I think you're in very dangerous territory, because that's where the short-term and long-term, like, I love what you said is when you give up money in the short term, you will win long-term almost every time, because what you've established is trust versus money. Like,
if I may, in the social media game, like, vulnerability can be like, we've all seen, maybe we haven't all seen it. There are some on social media when they're in the real estate situation, for example, that will post, oh, I just wrote my 30th offer for my buyer. We can't get it accepted. This market is so difficult. I mean, it's kind of an event. Okay, vulnerability. And what I have seen with classes that I've taken is, if you use that vulnerability to say, hey, this market is fast and swift. We wrote 33 offers. We got rejected in every single one. I was frustrated. Didn't give up. Hey, blah, blah, blah. You have to use the vulnerability, twist it to how you can help them achieve their dream. You know what I'm saying?
Use it as
opposed to, otherwise you're going to be like, oh my gosh, I don't want to go to my stand. My guys no.
Yeah. No, I mean, you use it as a story. You can, and I don't want to get too. I don't want it to be misconstrued as a victim, because I don't work in absolutes. The truth is always in the middle. So you can use it in your favor, or you can use it to hurt you without you knowing it. Maybe that's a better way to put it. If we use it strategically, I think that can be dangerous, but if we use it authentically, we win. Right? So when we get back to this is where I go back to, what are your strengths? What are you good at? I'm not suggesting what are you comfortable with. Let's not confuse those, because it's not, even when you're in your strengths, you may not be comfortable. Most likely you're not going to be if you're doing enough of it. So don't equate comfort to weaknesses or strengths. Equate it to what you intuitively know to be a strength that you can build off of, versus trying something over a period of time and you're seeing absolutely no progress and you're not getting any better. That might be a sign to pull back. Anything to add on?
I actually just a thought popped into my mind. This might be kind of fun for some of you to learn this, and also very helpful, especially with regard to what Mike said, the two different ways of communicating that. Back in my days in advertising, when I was, brand strategist in advertising, I was charged with helping create creative briefs to the creative teams. And the single line on the brief that was the most important was, what is the one key thing that we want our target audience to take away from this? Okay, so that's really what it boils down to.
It goes back to the specificity.
Whenever you put anything out there, it's pretty simple. Just ask, like, what do I want them to receive from this? And is it going to accomplish that, or might it be a little off base? And that would probably help you a lot.
I like the question. Say that again.
What is the one key thing that we want the audience to take away from this piece of communication? Print, ad, or TV, or whatever it is.
I want to emphasize, who is the question about? You guys know where I'm going with this, right?
Your target audience.
Is what you're putting out strictly self-serving, or is it actually bringing value to somebody else? And we all know intent matters. I believe intent matters dramatically. And I'm not saying we don't get to benefit by some of the things that we choose to do. We absolutely should benefit from some of those things. And if the only intent is I want to make sure I get something out of this, I think that's where the consistency is going to struggle, because you're not going to see the results quick enough for you to justify not getting anything out of it. So it becomes a waste of time. And if it's wasting my time, I'm just going to shift. And then maybe I should just recreate my plan. And if I recreate my plan, maybe that'll work. And then I'll do that for another 30 days. And maybe that won't work. And I need to, you guys are smiling at me. You guys, you get where I'm going though. So my goal in having this conversation is just to spark, do you understand what your brand is? Your individual brand. And how do you appeal to that niche? As soon as we get away from appealing to a certain idea that we, like our values and what we're actually trying to accomplish, we get lost in the noise. Like, Robin, I'll use you because Robin's different in how she communicates and what she puts out. Say this with love, you're goofy and awesome at the same time. And I think some, but she attracts people that are like, that's awesome. That was funny. And I like that. So she's not trying to appeal to everybody. She's being who she is to attract those that would kind of think of things the same way, the relatability and how they think about things. I remember you years ago, but you said, the best clients ever. I was thinking, that's because you know how to attract them. But when you're attracting a bunch of people that don't actually resonate with you, maybe there's an inconsistency in your branding that would allow you to actually accelerate that. So you guys have an opportunity to brand yourself, and don't underestimate the amount of things that you need to send out, whether it's direct mail, whether it's social media, whether it's, I don't care what it is. We underestimate. Gosh, that's a big word. we underestimate the amount of work that it actually takes to remind people of who we actually are. We all know it, but I have to say it like nobody thinks of us that often. They got their own life to live. You've got to be front and center enough to.
Yes, thank you.
Love you, Jeremy.
Everybody knows you. No, he's gonna hammer me afterwards. But when you put your plan together, don't worry about bugging people, because trust me, you're not bugging them. We're not doing nearly enough to be out in front and center to bug people. So go do more. Double up.
This is something that we've been doing. We've been talking to quite a few people and showing real sincere interest in football, and we get some good responses from people. Yeah, we'd like to work with you when we're ready to buy a house. But as we think back on some of these and follow up with some of these people, nothing really has happened. So recently we did sign a high-end buyer by being more specific. So we're showing genuine interest in this man, and he shares with us that he's recently going through a divorce and struggling with a number of things. And I said, well, if you're going through a divorce, I would imagine you're looking for a new home. And I said, I have a feeling that you'd be interested in something like a townhome, a high-end townhome, and possibly on the water. Have you ever had an interest in boating? Yeah, I used to have a big boat. He says, you got anything like that? He says, yes, I do. He says, let's go look at it. So specifically zeroing in on something that I thought he might be interested in, as opposed to saying, hey, we're realtors and we can help buyers.
Yep.
But specifically zeroing in with that genuine interest in it. I think that makes a difference.
Specificity. But we have to understand the people. Because my concern is we also go start telling without asking enough questions, and that backs us into a corner. Because it does feel, telling is what? Telling is what? Selling. But when you know somebody, you can go very specific because you've had enough conversations. So appreciate that story. Okay, anything else on branding? We're going to see all your videos and all your writings in the next 24 hours, right? Why are you laughing?
They're going to
Right.
Take reflection of your past business to give yourself a solid start off of. It's also important.
There's information you can glean from that for sure.
Yeah,
yep.
Where there's consumers in that market, with the market changing with interest rates and stuff like that, we have to shift that business to where the opportunities are now. Let our consumer or sphere know what we're doing.
Let's move into, I have some other things, but my gut says timing of the market right now is a good conversation to have. Rick and I were talking prior to this. Who's writing on multiple offers still? Okay. Who's seen price reductions? Who's confused? Okay. The market's shifting, guys. It's funky. Some places, some neighborhoods, some areas absolutely are in the same position. Most are different. So I think we really need to be aware of getting hyper specific on the clients that you're talking to in the areas that they're in, and being very, very cautious. I talked to somebody, 3 days, what is it? Monday. And guess what they said to the client, the listing, the person that was before they listed it, this was after they listed it. Guess what they told the client was going to happen when they listed it on Thursday?
You can sell in hours.
Yeah, we're going to get a lot of showings. You might want to just figure out things to do over the weekend because it's going to be busy and we'll have multiple offers. Guess what happened? They had a few showings. No offers. That makes everybody want to swear a little bit, I think, right? We have to be very, very careful on setting this assumption and automatic, this is what the market's going to give us, because it's automatically whose fault? You took ownership of the market, which you have no control over. None of us get to control the market at all. Our job is to get the most exposure for those listings and get the best terms for the client and make it as easy as possible. That's what our job is. Our job is not to dictate the market. So now that this is getting a little funky, we've got to stop. We've got to educate the consumer base. If we're truly advisors, we've got to educate the consumer base to make sure they understand how they're making decisions that is going to best serve them short-term and long-term. Because if you have a property on the market for 30 days, guess what? They're going to get some pain based on what their expectations were 30 days prior to. So I want to make sure that we're communicating effectively. Now,
I like that you just said, educating them. Earlier, you talked about the 411. You didn't dive into the 411 being a part of a very strong tool of an accountability group. Recently, I had an agent ask me, Matt, how do you know the information that you share? Where do you pick up on the information? Where do you get it? And I simply said, are you in an accountability group and do you go to the weekly meetings? All of you in this room right now have an indication if you've been in an accountability group and or you've been to weekly meetings over the last month or 2 months, you know exactly what Jake's talking about. You also know exactly that this agent probably hasn't been in an accountability group or attended meetings to know that the market has changed.
We learn from each other.
Bingo.
We learn from we don't have to know all the properties, we don't have to know all the specifics, but we can find themes.
Yeah. And this is where I'll plug those accountability groups that those of you are in, and those of you that are challenging one another in said groups, congratulations and thank you. Because we do learn from one another. We learn from those that ask the questions. And again, really using the platform or the tool, the 411, are you using it? That's designed to help you. The accountability group is help you learn and move forward.
I didn't pay you to say that either. For those that know me, accountability groups, I think, is your path to doing great personal work and great professional work. It exposes both.
But that education piece is what I'm seeing a lot of right now in the broker role, where I'm talking to a lot of agents, and most of them know exactly the direction and path they want to go. They're just looking for validation from me. And some of them can pick up the very information from just really being engaged in their brokerages, in their offices, in their groups. Yep. And so that's where you know where the market's at. You know the pulse of the market.
For those that were, so in the those that are in the Minneapolis office, you probably saw the thread over the weekend. If Aaron is on there, Aaron posted, so how's the weekend going? You couldn't even sketch out what that conversation looked like. I lost 3. I got 3. I did a price reduction. This one went 75,000 over. This one went with inspection at sales price. Like, it's like, what the hell's going on? I don't understand this. We have to interpret it.
So to tie back into branding, what we're talking about, you need to be, as an agent, you need to be aware of all this. You need to be engaged in this to be able to execute your brand to actually truly help your consumer. Suit up and show up. That's what this team's about.
I like when Matt gets aggressive. Makes me happy. You can see the passion and care and like, all at the same time. I don't know how you do it, but you do it well, Matt. It's what Julia calls Papa John. John Butler, Julia calls it Papa John, and it's stuck. So, any other thoughts around the market? I know we're end on time, but this is a valuable conversation as far as I'm concerned. It's because it's so fluid, one week to the next.
Rick? I would say, the greatest advantage of Keller, in my opinion, is it's a dynamic company. It can move quickly. It can adjust quickly. We're constantly getting the information. So make sure you're doing that. If you anticipated this, putting a house on, you anticipated you're going to get a ton of showings this weekend and you don't, well, do something else. Add an open house. You switch something up, quickly, so that you are being ahead of your clients, because your clients obviously are going to complain when they see that something's different than they anticipated.
100%. What you said is ahead of your clients and effective communication. You can be ahead of your clients and not communicate it, and it's like you didn't know you were ahead of your clients if you don't communicate it. That makes sense? So don't be shy to communicate it. Just say, like, very well be. We very well may get a bunch of offers.
You got
do it. You guys, I love you. You may get all that activity, but you may not. And if we don't, you guys have plans set up to get more exposure and get more people in the door to be able to generate activity and generate interest and ultimately get you to the point that they hired you. Bryce, real quick.
I find myself using the word goal more. Our goal is this, and then having a plan, like you said, set up. So set the goals. Like, our goal is to get 10 people through your house. Then you get a good sampling of the market.
I'd also be careful on that, though, because what do they hear? They hear 10.
Yeah, but then if you don't get 10, using the word goal, that's our goal.
Yeah.
That's about as far you can do. Then what you're going to do to pivot to get 10 people. Well, we didn't get. It happened to me this.
So use it as a barometer of are we in the right place compared to the marketplace?
Because people are very accepting that there's a lot going on in the world today.
Yep.
That could.
We've got to make sure we're the economists of choice. I like that. It's cliche, but it means you understand the fundamentals of what's happening in the local real estate market. You can be the economist of choice. Guess what? They don't have to love you. They're going to love you because you got them the outcome they were searching. So understanding how the dynamics play, the showing activity, what's happening. Like if you post something, hey, I just checked with people in my office and they say in this neighborhood, there's 2 people that have multiple things and this is the activity that they got based on what you have. We might want to take some of that information and apply it to how we're going to market and how we're going to strategize around getting the best outcome that we're searching. Okay. So my goal in this is let's not assume it's the same market and use the same scripts that we've used over the past 2 months because it's different. And I don't want you guys to be the ones paying for the market shift because we didn't communicate it. I want you guys to be out front of it because your service level. I always use this idea of your service level is based on the expectations that you set. So if two people go on the same listing appointment and I say I'm going to do these 10 things and Kim says you're going to do these 5 things, and let's just say it's played out, or yeah, you say you're going to do 5, I'm going to do 10. And they played out in both scenarios. I only did 7 things, she did all 5. Who presented the better service? She did. Why? She followed through on the expectations that she set. Even though I could have done more, the perception is I paid for more than what you said you were going to do. So understand that when you go into these conversations that you're setting the expectations that actually you can deliver on at a really high level, not just throw a bunch of stuff against the wall and then get trapped. Okay, I'm going to leave you with this. I'm not going to get to all Gary's ahas, but he said, the number one goal of being a great parent, a great friend, and a great leader is simply to help people learn how to make great decisions. You do that in any area of your life, you're going to have a lot of people that trust you. This is where we can get stuck, is we start to influence people to make decisions that serve our needs versus what's best for them because we haven't learned enough about what they have. So become very, very good at helping people make great decisions. And I promise you, your life, your relationships, your kids, everybody that it's in your world are going to trust you because you seem to be this solid place where they can get real answers and not just ones that are self-serving.
That was from Gary from Austin a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, I was down there. It was for leadership at that point. They did a separate leadership thing.
Can you share the rest for those that might be willing to stay a few extra minutes?
If you guys got to leave, you're not hurting me. Yeah, do your announcement real quick, and then I'll share what else I have.
I feel like I just pumped the brakes on your.
You're good. I told you to.
I know.
I gave you permission to do that.
So for those of, well, really anybody who's here, but this is kind of more directed to the Edina agents. We've got our Shed and Shred coming up this weekend, but next weekend. You guys see these little flyers of stuff that's needed for the welcome baskets. The shredding people are giving us a really beautiful rate to do this as long as we did some sort of charitable donation, and it lined up perfectly with Ann. So we are going to be collecting and filling up those laundry baskets in the front there with these items to give to the people who are using that organization services. You're also going to see a sign up come around for cars. I need like 13 cars. We're going to have them positioned kind of strategically in the parking lot. When you sign up for that, you're committing to be there early and to leave your car there for the entire time. Because it's literally going to be used to block some traffic. So it can't be moved.
You don't want somebody bailing and then
yeah.
Traffic just flying through.
Little things come up, but just something that, keep in mind. And then also the people who signed up to volunteer, there's going to be a meeting next week and we're just going to blaze through everything. I think it's going to be on Tuesday. So
okay. Thank you, Lindsay. Cool. All right, so a few things that Gary shared. The one was helping people make great decisions. Don't let the word wealthy be hijacked with just finances. This idea of wealth, we always associate with money, but if you think about wealth, it's actually abundance. So when you look at different areas of your life, relationships, money, spiritual health, are you wealthy in every area of your life? And if you're not, what would you do differently to be wealthy in every area of your life? I wrote down here, like, don't confuse, I want everybody to make a ton of money, but not to compromise value or their health or relationships. So when I say, don't worry about just money, yeah, go make a lot of money, but make sure you're in alignment with your values and with all the other things in your life that are important, okay? I think in every conversation I have, we talk about leadership. Leadership of yourself is more important than leadership of others because you can't ever lead anybody else. And short term, but you're going to get exposed as being a fraud if you can't lead yourself well, because what's going to happen is you're going to tell everybody else to do what you're not doing. There's going to be a reckoning at a certain point if you don't follow through. Okay. The agents that make the most amount of money in our industry, the agents that best generate listings. This isn't a new concept. Maybe as a buyer's agent, it doesn't mean that you can't.
What was the last word?
Listings. That we generate for listings. You look at any market, that holds true. You have listings, you have something of value. Okay.
Sorry, Jake, could
Yeah.
you just say that again? I think I lost that in the Zoom.
The agents that make the most amount of money in our industry are the agents that master lead generation for listings.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. You're welcome. I wrote mindset of a business conversation, but the more I look at it, it can apply to anything. So the mindset of any conversation, 3 things: come from curiosity, come from contribution, and then be enthusiastic about having the actual conversation. And then the business side, be enthusiastic about being in business with them. Like Mo. Like, be enthusiastic. People back in the day understand what that is.
And will you the title of that, the 3 what?
The mindset of, I wrote down the mindset of a business conversation, but I think it actually feeds relationships when you come from curiosity, when you come from contribution, and you're excited about having a conversation. You might need to pump yourself up a little bit to go into some of those conversations. What I've been writing down a lot, guys, is be detached but not indifferent. What does that mean? The way I've looked at it is attachment causes me a lot of stress. If I'm trying to control something or somebody, I'm attached to the outcome, which makes me show up differently. And it seems like you don't care about the end result if you detach. That's not true. That's where the indifference comes in. I'm not indifferent. Like, I'm detached from the idea of growing the market centers. But I'm hell-bent on growing the market centers. I just don't get to control any of you. You guys can do whatever you want. You guys may leave. That sucks. Can't control it. I can bring as much value as I possibly can to try and provide meaningful ways for you to show up and be better. But if you decide something else, that sucks. It's still painful, but I can't be attached to that outcome because it's burden.
Does it suck if we leave 10 minutes after the event's over?
It's 11 now. We still got 50 on there. I'm pretty pumped about that. Unless they have their cameras off and they're not actually listening. I mean, they're just waiting for somebody to actually shut it down. You all laugh because you've been there like, oh, that's still running. No, it's not. Somebody else shut it down. Then I had actually 2-3 people reach out to me about a post that I posted. I rank every day from 2 to -2. And what makes a great day? What I've learned is we use circumstances and events to justify having a good day or a bad day. You're at the whim of life throwing a lot of garbage at you if that's how you want to have a good day or a bad day. What I've learned is how you show up every day and how you're being every day is what makes the day good or bad, because I know people that have a lot of stuff thrown at them and they're proud of how they handled the day, which makes it a great day. And I also know other people that have a ton of great things going on and they just got a really poor attitude. So that tells me, like, circumstances are going to influence certain days. I'm not suggesting that's irrelevant. But if you allow just what happens that shows up in your day to make your day a certain way, that's a tough place to be. I've lived there. It's not fun. So when you wake up, just understand that you can proactively choose how to bring value to other people. That makes 90% of your day great. Cool. Thanks for your time, guys. You stayed late. I appreciate it.